Hello, Blue Jays fans, and welcome to Sunny Side of the Dome. I'm your host, Karen Soutar, and I'm here to talk to you about some Blue Jays baseball. Sunny Side of the Dome is brought to you by Jays from the Couch. We stream live on Thursdays at 6 p.m. You can find us on Jays from the Couch's YouTube channel. You can also follow us on Facebook and or Twitter, and we post the links there. You can follow along live, or you can always catch us if you're busy doing something else. You can always catch the archive recording on any one of those medium. And if you like the content here at Sunny Side of the Dome, there's lots more where that came from. There's Jays from the Couch's main podcast, which is Monday evenings at 6 p.m. That's hosted by Sean Doyle, the founder of Jays from the Couch. Sean does a great job with that podcast. You get to hear not only his thoughts, but he's pretty much always got someone on there with him for some other opinions, whether that's fellow Jays from the Couch writers. Sometimes I'm on, sometimes I'm not, but lots of other writers with different viewpoints and so forth. And he's had other guests, professional MLB media, Shai Davidi, Keegan Matheson, and even some Blue Jays players, prospects. Not that long ago, Jordan Romano was a guest. So be sure and check that out. And if you miss that, it's also available as a podcast wherever you get podcasts. So Apple, Google, Stitcher, Spotify, any quality podcast pretty much has access to Jays from the Couch. So lots of ways to check it out. As well, there's another show, the On-Fec Circle, on Tuesday evenings at 6 p.m., starring my Jays from the Couch colleague, the Feckless Wonder, Steve Feck. And Steve is always very interesting. Steve is never boring. I'm sure he's never been called boring in his life. Steve is funny, he's smart, he knows a lot, and he'll probably make you laugh, make you think, maybe make you want to tear your hair out, and sometimes all of the above in one episode. But it's always worth checking out. So if you haven't done so, be sure to do so Thursday, that's me. Steve is Tuesday at 6 p.m. So, happy Thursday evening, Jays fans. No game today. Yeah, it's been an interesting week. Kind of unfortunate. They won 2 games. Unfortunately, they lost 4. The last series, the mini 2-game series in Boston versus the Red Sox, that wasn't actually too bad. They went 1-1. And if you can split a series on the road against a first-place team like the Red Sox, you're not doing too badly. I'm more or less okay with that, the result anyway. The series in Kansas City, and again, that was kind of unfortunate. I was hoping they would manage to take at least 2, if not 3 of those. And they're sort of scuffling right now. Their overall record is 8-10, and they're 3.5 games behind those first place Boston Red Sox. So, is that great? Not really. Is it time to panic after 18 games? Absolutely not. I mean, we all know the story. If we're really into baseball, it's 162 games other than last year, and we all know about last year, but for most seasons, it's 162 games. It's a marathon, not a sprint, and you're going to go through your ups and downs. And unfortunately, right now, they've been down more than they've been up. It's a little expected when you consider they've had 2 key bats, and as far as their position players, George Springer and Teoscar Hernandez are on the injured list. Springer hasn't even played yet this regular season. We're still waiting for him to be healthy and ready for game action, and 8 pitchers on the injured list. So yeah, that's really something. Some injury updates before we get to the heart of tonight's lineup. So, if any of you, and I really hope you did, watch the most recent episode of the On-Fec Circle, my colleague Steve Feck was talking about TJ Zoik and how he was put on the injured list due to an inflated ERA. And I laughed out loud when he said that. That there's nothing like him. I can't put things the way that he does. He's just really got a knack. No, of course, the official reason for Zoik going on the injured list was shoulder tendonitis. And yeah, I mean, I get what Steve was getting at there, and it kind of occurred to me too. You don't really know. Sometimes you hear rumors as fans who aren't behind the scenes and don't necessarily have the official story, but you kind of wonder when someone, a position player or a pitcher, whoever it is, goes on the injured list after they've been struggling. In how many cases were they actually injured? I mean, on one hand, maybe a lot of them, maybe most of them truly are injured, and that could be a part of their poor performance. So that's one way of looking at it. On the other hand, maybe somebody's just struggling and there isn't really an injury per se, but you just kind of want to give them a break from playing, and hopefully if you shut them down for a bit, maybe hoping that things can turn around. So you kind of wonder which it is, but anyway, so that's that. So Zoik is out of action for a while. And in that, Santiago Espinal was kind of up and down, up and down. Jays played a doubleheader on Saturday. They were allowed to add a 27th man for the doubleheader, so he was it. And he actually played really well defensively at third base in the first game, actually. Then they sent him back down, but then when Zoik was put on the injured list, they called Espinal back up. So for now, at least, Santiago Espinal is back with the team, and we've got 13 position players and 13 pitchers. So some other transactions, injury notes. So they claimed today or traded for, I'm not sure which it is, I think it was a trade. The Jays acquired 25-year-old Jeremy Beasley. He has one game of major league experience. That was last year, and I believe, I'm not sure if he's currently injured. He wasn't on the major league roster. The Arizona Diamondbacks had to DFA him, and the Jays claimed him, and in doing so, the unfortunate news, although not completely unexpected, was Thomas Hatch was transferred to the 60-day injured list. So that's not good. If somebody goes on the 60-day IL, obviously it's going to be a while, at least 60 days, and kind of wonder if what's going on with him could keep him out a majority of the season, maybe even the whole season. So too bad. He's really talented, but hopefully whatever it is, he can get it sorted out and return to action and help the Jays win. Excuse me a moment. All right, so there's that. Some other notes, injury-wise, some updates were put out earlier today. So we've got Nate Pearson, who's he's still working his way back, and they're saying, like, based on where he is in his progression, that he's maybe a couple of weeks away. So, I mean, that's kind of what I would have expected based on what I've been hearing. And you know what? I'm just happy because he is apparently completely pain-free, and we want Nate Pearson back when he's healthy. And apparently, according to him, he spoke to Hazel May. I saw an interview, and when she asked him, have they given you any idea how they're going to use you whenever you do come back? And apparently they're quite specific that they intend to use him in the rotation. And I like that a lot. I think that's where he belongs. He's got that upside, and until and unless for one reason or another it doesn't work out for him as a starter, then that's where I want to see him. So that's Nate Pearson. Some others, Ross Stripling, they were saying that he could come back. It didn't sound like it was a longer term thing, that he could come back. I forget if they really gave a time frame, but maybe within a week or two. So see how that goes. Julian Merriweather, unfortunately, has been shut down for 2 weeks, so that doesn't sound very good. That's so unfortunate because when he is healthy, he's such a talent, but anyway, that's where that stands. The Jays, it sounds like they're going to be getting some help back sooner than later. Both Tyler Chatwood and Jordan Romano, it sounds like they will actually be activated for the upcoming series against the Tampa Bay Rays, which starts tomorrow, 3-game series. And we all know, if you're a fan of the Toronto Blue Jays, we know how much the Tampa Bay Rays have absolutely killed the Blue Jays. So if we can get some quality help back for that series, then that's fantastic news. The other injured people on the injured list, so George Springer, he is apparently going to play in an intra-squad game at the alternate site tomorrow, so they're working him back, so it doesn't sound like the plan is for him to be active, at least not tomorrow. I guess they want to take their time and just make sure that he absolutely is game ready, and so we'll see how that goes, whether they move him from the alternate sites over to Tampa for Saturday's game, whether they want to give him the whole weekend, we'll see. But looking forward to seeing him again when he's healthy and really ready to contribute. Teoscar Hernandez. So interesting situation about that and around that. So apparently he needs to take another COVID test tomorrow. Once he officially tests negative, and I think he already has, but they need to, per the protocols, they need to do more than one test. Once he officially tests negative again tomorrow, then he's cleared to return to the Blue Jays and resume baseball activities. So sounds like he's pretty close. Now, the interesting thing, and this is something that I just learned today, and I don't know how many of you watching might already know this, but if you don't, maybe you're learning something like I am. So, as we know, Teoscar Hernandez is on the COVID-specific injured list. So there's no minimum amount of time, no maximum amount of time. And it also specifies that if you need to put someone on the COVID IL, that you can actually add people. You can even add players to the 40-man roster if you have to do so to put together your best roster. And then once those players are eligible to be activated, you don't have to go through the usual process of optioning them, putting them on waivers, or any of the things that you would normally have to do. And so I took a look on the Jays website. I looked at their 40-man roster, and including Hernandez, they're currently at 41. So they did make use of that. So one way or another, prior to Hernandez being activated, whenever that happens, somebody's got to come off the roster. I'm kind of wondering if Jeremy Beasley might actually be that guy. They claim him, trade for him, only to sneak him off the roster and not be subject to being DFA'd if that's the way it works. So we'll find out. If not, then I guess another move is going to have to be made. So on to the heart of tonight's order. I'm really interested. I'm really finding the situation interesting with the Blue Jays pitching as a whole, their pitching staff. So we all know in the offseason, everybody was convinced that the hitting isn't going to be an issue. I mean, look at the guys they already had. Look at all the runs that they scored last year. And then they just added George Springer, as well as Marcus Semien, whose offense has been inconsistent in his MLB career. At times he's hit very well, at other times not so much. So you didn't really know what you were getting from from Semien, offensively. From Springer, you absolutely know what you can expect because he's had a very good career with the bat. He's a veteran, and he got the payday that he did for reasons. So No one expected the offense to be a problem. They've scuffled early. Honestly, I'm not worried about them in that regard. I'm quite confident that they're going to pick it up. And looking back at the end of the season, I think we're going to say the offense did just fine. The pitching was not expected to be an area of strength, and the pitching is currently best in the American League with a staff ERA of 3.14. I'll take that. Am I surprised? So. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I predicted that per se. I did say, and I have been saying, I think pretty much all along, that I think this pitching staff has a chance to be a lot better than many people expect. And so many people in the offseason, and I was one of them, were wanting to add a veteran quality starter and name somebody who was established, somebody who we pretty much knew we could rely on the way we rely on Hyun-Jin Ryu. So, and it didn't appear to have happened. If anything, and I even wrote about this as well in the off season, that they had a number of prospects / young players with a little bit too much experience to be called prospects, but still very young and not completely proven at the major league level. And then there were some reclamation projects, and in and amongst all that, I really saw and still see the ability to put together a quality starting rotation. So I want to kind of take a look at that and where we are right now and how all of that is going. So in terms of the veteran starters who didn't have such a hot year in 2020 and were looking to hopefully bounce back. So you had Tanner Roark, Ross Stripling, Robby Ray, and Steven Matz. Well, I'd say we're about 50-50 there. And really, I think I'm pretty happy with that. I mean, you can't realistically look at that group and expect all 10 of them to pitch like Cy Young. I don't think that was ever realistic, but just with building that much quality, talent, and depth, I really felt like somebody was going to step forward and do well. So, Steven Matz, oh my goodness. Whatever it is that the Blue Jays management saw in him and decided that it was worth trading for him, well done. And all I can say is continue doing what you're doing. 3 games, 3 starts, 1.47 ERA. I mean, he pitched the first game of the doubleheader on Saturday, didn't even allow a hit through the first 5 innings, and apparently had he pitched the full 7, because right now doubleheaders are 7-inning affairs, had he managed to pitch the full 7 innings and not give up a hit, he would not officially have been given credit for a no-hitter. That's MLB's decision. I don't know how you feel about that. Personally, I think a no-hitter is a no-hitter. You know, maybe make a note that it was a 7-inning no-hitter, but to me, if you're going to go out and do that, and if Major League Baseball makes a decision that a doubleheader should be 7 innings only, then why penalize someone who goes out and pitches his heart out? And what I think should have been a place in the record books. In any case, it's a moot point because he did end up giving up some hits. But yeah, Steven Matz has just been fantastic, and thank goodness that they traded for him. Hyun-Jin Ryu, there was never really much of a question. I mean, they paid him $80 million for 4 years. For the most part, he has really pitched like the staff ace that he was brought in to be. Very good as well this year. ERA of an even 3 in 4 games. It was actually under 2 prior to the start that he had on Tuesday. Gave up a few runs. That was his shortest start of the season so far. And I'm not quite sure if it was him being human and not 100% sharp, or, he was playing against the first place Boston Red Sox. And one of the things that the Red Sox have done very well so far this season is score runs. They're number one in the American League right now in runs scored. So you have to factor in the caliber of your opponent as well. So there's that. And Robby Ray, so he started the season on the injured list, unfortunately, was activated a little while ago, has made 2 starts, and for the most part, I'd say he's been a success. I mean, if this is what he's going to give the Jays all year, I'll take it. I mean, we all know the kind of pitcher that he is. His Achilles heel, so to speak, is wildness. Sometimes he issues too many walks, and that can just, I mean, for one thing, some of those walks come back to score, but even if they don't, his pitch count can get run up, and like he was the other day on Sunday, he pitched 5 innings, 5 scoreless innings, in spite of surrendering 6 walks. I mean, how the heck does that even happen? Well, that happens because the quality of his stuff is so good that he can put that many free passes on base. It's not ideal, but he can do that and still manage to pitch around that and get out unscathed, so to speak. But again, the unfortunate part about that is that his pitch count was elevated, had to be pulled after 5 innings, and the Jays ended up having to use a lot of the bullpen. So hopefully going forward, guys can get more stretched out, keep the pitch counts down, and go deeper into games, because we want to save that bullpen a bit. So as far as the other veteran starters, unfortunately, the news hasn't been as good. Tanner Roark, he had actually 1 start in the regular season, really didn't do well at all. He was actually scheduled to start 2 Sundays ago in a game against the Anaheim Angels that ended up getting postponed due to rain. And then it was announced pretty much right after the game that Roark was out of the rotation, and that he was going to the bullpen. So that's kind of an interesting decision. They were going to let him pitch 1 more game, but they'd pretty much already made the decision to send him to the bullpen. Interestingly enough, he's had a couple of outings in relief in the bullpen, and he seems to be pitching much better. He hasn't given up any runs anyway in 2 outings in the bullpen, totaling around 3 innings or so. He hasn't given up a run yet. So, you know what? Maybe there's actually some value. Some people are talking about just cutting ties altogether, DFAing him, eating the rest of his salary for this year. But who knows? I mean, if he can actually work it out and be a valuable bullpen piece, then you know what? Maybe they keep him around. We'll see how it goes. The other thing, the other veteran, Ross Stripling, he's pitched in a couple of games, and he hasn't been good either. And in fact, his earned run average is even higher, whereas Roark's overall is 6.43, Stripling's is 7.56. So again, he did go on the injured list. We don't really know to what extent the injury, assuming that there's a real injury there, we were talking about that before, we don't know to what extent that might have contributed to his issues. So I mean, since he's been on the injured list, I'm kind of hoping that he truly was injured, and that might have been why he didn't pitch all that well. And hopefully he's going to come back healthy in a little while, and maybe you can see, because Ross Stripling, I checked his stats. I mean, the Jays traded for him mid-year last year when he was struggling, but pre-2020, his stats were pretty darn good, and they were consistent year after year. So, I mean, if he can return to anything close to his pre-2020 form, then we've got a viable option for the bullpen. So, for me, the jury's still out on him, but we'll see how all of that goes. And excuse me a moment, quick pause. So yes, as far as the other young guys who have a chance, had a chance, and in some cases still have a chance to make an impact in the rotation. So Nate Pearson, we spoke about him a bit before. Haven't seen him in regular season action yet this year, but I'm hopeful that maybe in a couple of weeks he can come back healthy and maybe he can be the front end of the rotation starting pitcher that we've heard about for the last few years. So cautiously optimistic, fingers crossed. If he's healthy, I believe in Nate Pearson. I think he's got a heck of a lot of talent. Thomas Hatch, I finally caught one of the shows live. Karen, do you really believe the Blue Jays have enough starting pitching to win the AL East? Well, AL East, I mean, I'll be honest, anything can happen. It's still early and everybody's bunched up in the standings. So could they win the AL East? Possibly. My own prediction, actually, I have them as a wild card team this year, and I still kind of feel like it's going to be the bats that carry them there. But and I'm going through here, I mean, with Ryu and Ray and Matz, if they can just stay healthy, keep doing what they're doing, if they can add Nate Pearson and he gives them the quality, I mean, just right there, those four guys, I think they could sneak in, if not as the division winner, then I strongly do see them as a wild card team. So thanks for the question. Appreciate that. So Nate Pearson, good chance he can come back soon and contribute. Thomas Hatch, unfortunately, 60-day injured list. So as much as he is talented and showed a lot of promise last season, I'm not really expecting much from him this season at this point, which is too bad. The other guys, Julian Merriweather, in the offseason and prior to the season, last fall, they were talking about him as an option for the starting rotation. Well, as we know, they actually used him in the bullpen before he went on the injured list as well. They were using him in the closer's role. He pitched in 4 games, and my God, what a talented arm. I mean, when this man is healthy, he's just lights out. He could be like almost Mariano Rivera 2.0 in terms of his success. If he can stay healthy, that's the key. And I mean, he's already had lots of injury problems in his career, and he's really not that young. I think he's later 20s, that much I'm sure of. So we'll see when he can get back, and being shut down for 2 weeks, we don't really know. But anyway, see how that goes. And TJ Zoik, we've talked about him as well. He actually, he quite struggled in the games that he did pitch in. He had an ERA, and it's actually higher than Tanner Roark's. His ERA is, I believe, 6.75. So yeah, again, I was all for giving him a chance, and let's see what happens when he comes back and if he can pitch better. Unfortunately, he really hasn't looked good. So that leaves us with a couple of other young guys that could be in the rotation at some point. So one is Trent Thornton, and Trent Thornton has actually pitched very, very well this season. He's currently got a 1.86 ERA. They've been using him out of the bullpen. He started the game last night, but he only pitched a couple of innings, even though his pitch count wasn't all that high or anything. And then, too, you've got to remember that Thornton he was injured last year. He had season-ending surgery last year, so I guess they're just being cautious with him. They want to make sure that they don't overload him work-wise, and they can keep him healthy and see what he can do. So, it remains to be seen whether he can go into the rotation at some point this year, give them some quality innings, or if he remains in the bullpen, or even if they kind of use him like they did yesterday as a 2-inning opener. It got the job done. It won the game for them. I don't want the guys who are in the bullpen to end up being overused and overworked. I mean, we saw a lot of that last year, and that last year was such an anomaly, but we'll see how that goes. So something to keep an eye on. And one more guy worth talking about is Anthony Kay, that left-handed pitcher, one of the two pitching prospects the Jays got from the Mets for Marcus Stroman. And I like Anthony Kay. I think he's got a lot of talent. And in a way, I kind of feel bad for him because he's just gotten some bad breaks with the Jays. I mean, last year he was used in relief. He got into 13 games, and the first 11 were very, very good. But then, as I mentioned last year, like just the entire bullpen, because the starters either couldn't or weren't being allowed to go deep into games, that the bullpen just got so overworked, even in a 60-game season. And I feel like he was so overworked that his last couple of outings reflected that, and his overall numbers for the year didn't look that great, but I think that's why. So Kay has gotten into one game so far this season for the Toronto Blue Jays. His ERA, 10.80. His FIP, 1.28. I mean, come on, guys. Play some defense around this man. And their defense has been a concern. That's a topic for a whole other show. But yeah, I think Kay has got some talent. He's someone that I really hope they give a long look to. And I think that he's someone who can help them out. Interestingly, I mean, he's a lefty, and they've already got 3 really good lefties in the rotation. So who knows? Maybe they could have 4. Maybe they could have like all southpaws. They could be the southpaw team. Well, that almost brings us to the end of tonight's show. So that's time for 3 Blue Jay color glasses. So, as usual, sticking with the theme of the pitching and the starting rotation and the lovely question that I just had, what do I really think about this pitching staff and the pitching rotation? Well, again, I'll be very honest. I think they had the chance to be better as a group if a few people stepped up to be a lot better than people thought and to be able to take them to the playoffs. And for me, I think it's working out that way. You've got Ryu, who's great. You've got Matz and Ray, who are doing very well. And just keep up with what you're doing, Ray. Cut down on the strikeouts if you can, just cut down on the walks if you can. Strikeouts, we'll take those. But yeah, with the other guys that they've got, with Nate Pearson, with possibly Trent Thornton, Anthony Casey, who works their way in as a fifth starter sort of thing. And don't forget, there's always mid-season trades. And there's going to be somebody who is pitching well on a team that isn't in contention, and they'll be willing to part with some tradable assets. The Jays did it last year, even when they weren't really expected to go to the playoffs, not at the beginning of the season. They became buyers for the first time in a few years instead of sellers, and they went into this offseason building not just for the future, but for the present. They see themselves as contenders. And I could see, without literally giving up the farm, I could see them parting with some valuable assets to get some immediate help. And I really see it. I think they're going to the playoffs this year, and it'll be interesting to see how well they do. And on that note, that's the end of today's episode, so thank you so much for tuning in. Let's go Blue Jays, and I'll see you next week.